share it afterwards on YouTube for people who can join. So, short introduction of the three of us for people who don't know us. So we're three agile coaches from three different companies. And yeah, this session is not a training, so it's more about our experience and our knowledge that we want to share with you guys. And of course, we want you to get hungry for more and perhaps also work with us together or whatsoever. But yeah, this is definitely not a training. Great. So what have we prepared for today? So it's all about psychological safety. We have a big part. And yeah, this is, I think, a really interesting topic, and I'm really happy that we could prepare that. And then, of course, as it's the last session of the year, we're going to do a little recap of 2021 and see what we have all done and what happened. And at the end, we would like you guys to give us a little bit of feedback of like how we handled the whole year and topics. And yeah, we're really looking forward to get more feedback from you guys.
Should we get started then?
Yes.
Looks like it. We have more people joining, but I guess we get started.
Yeah, well, we can slowly get started to let people a little bit of time to join and settle in.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to start with psychological safety today. It's a huge topic. So what we're going to do is probably scratch the surface, give us some thoughts about what this really means and how we could build it. What we're going to do is start with a quick question. We're going to use menti.com. So we would really want you to participate. Please go to menti.com, use the code, and you must be able to get the first question. So the code is 55154739. Right, and the question that we ask is, how safe do you feel here? And sure, can somebody share the link on the chat? That would be very useful.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Manuel. Yeah, and the idea is how to just get a sense of how safe you really feel here. And when I mean here, the breakfast, Agile Breakfast. So, how do we measure this? Is by these 7 questions. So you have a strongly disagree on your left and a strongly agree to the right. And just put in a number there for each of the 7 questions. So just let's take a couple of minutes to get some answers there and then see how this goes, right? Okay, so we have more and more people joining in and getting on to Menti. So we have 9, 10 people voting. So just go to menti.com, use the code, and vote on how safe do you feel in our current setting. Okay, so this is not a random set of questions that we put in here. These are basically the questions that are used to find out or measure psychological safety in a team. This was put together by Amy Edmondson, and what we see here is going to be a mixture of questions. Some of them are going to be questions that you strongly agree with, and some that you strongly disagree with. Can we just go back to the questions? Yeah, thank you. So what you see here is that, we have a big mixture here, I wouldn't call this a very safe environment. And that also shows, right? You don't have people even switching on their cameras. What we also see quite a lot is that not many people ask questions. People find it difficult to actually, you know, participate. And that's one of the reasons why we use menti.com, make things anonymous. And that kind of shows also in the scores that we see here. There could be several reasons for that. One of that being the fact that this is a floating crowd. It's not the same set of people that we meet all the time. So that could be a reason why it is not very safe. It could be that we've not put in so much effort to make this place safe. So it could be a lot of reasons why we see that it is not a very safe place. But you could do the same with your teams and really find out what is the safety levels in your teams, right? Let's go to the slides, Manuel. So like I was saying, psychological safety is basically a concept that Amy Edmondson from Harvard, actually, she's a professor at Harvard who actually discovered this. She's been working on this for 3 decades now. So in the late 1990s, she coined this word, psychological safety. And there's been a lot of research that's been done around this. And what's interesting is that what they found psychological safety to be one of the most important in any organization. So then the question is, what is psychological safety? And she defines, can we just go back, Manuel? Yeah, thank you. She defines psychological safety as a belief that no one will be punished or humiliated for speaking up with their ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. So if you're looking to gift somebody a book, today is also St. Nicholas Day, I would suggest The Fearless Organization. It's a wonderful book. If you've not read it, it's a great read. And I would definitely suggest that as one book to really look at. What she also says is there are a lot of ways in which we look at psychological safety. And when we talk about psychological safety for us, what we need to be clear of is what it is not, right? Psychological safety is not about being nice. So it's not about creating an environment where, everybody agrees with everyone, but then after the meeting, you just, go behind their backs and talk. No, it's not about that. Psychological safety is not a personality factor, meaning if you're an extrovert, you're going to talk more. If you're an introvert, you're going to talk less. No, it's not that. Psychological safety is also not another word for trust. I think that's the next slide, Emmanuel. Yeah, so trust is what we talk about as something that we have between two people. Psychological safety is something that happens at a group level. And that's very beautifully encompasses that when we say that, trust is when we give others the benefit of doubt. Psychological safety is when others give us a benefit of doubt, the group itself. And what's most important is psychological safety is not about lowering standards and tolerating mistakes. No, it's not that at all. So in fact, what we talk about is to have a high psychological safety and a high standard. And that's where you're really going to have a learning organization, right? If you have high psychological safety and low standards, that's going to be a comfort zone where not many people are going to really be productive. But what we end up with is probably high standards and low psychological safety, which only leads to anxiety. So we spoke about what it is and what it is not. And all of this comes from the fact that, we are being always judged by others, or we need inherently to make an impression on a lot of people, right? So every time we are asking a question, the question is, do I think when I ask this question, will people look at me as ignorant, right? Every time I make a suggestion, then the question is, am I being disruptive? Every time I make a mistake or ask for help, do people look at me as incompetent? And what we try to do is then we try to make sure that we don't do these things, right? When we are in an environment where we are able to do these things without thinking of, okay, I'm going to be ignorant, incompetent, disruptive, then that's such an environment is what we call a psychological safe environment. And there's tons and tons of research to show how important this is. And not just in the IT industry, but this research has been done over the pharma industry, in hospitals, in chemical plants, and everywhere it's been the same, that if you really need a high performing team, you need psychological safety.
I would add something here, Shiva. I
Go
think
ahead.
it's not only about like working environments, but like in life in general. Because if I think back like to like going to school or even at university, like you also have like groups of people and the possibility to, you know, like being judged when you speak up, or if you ask a question where you think, oh, it might be a stupid question, everybody else would know the answer, but perhaps I'm the only one who doesn't. And it's exactly the same set of mind to say, hey, am I safe enough to speak up and ask that question? If you're a toddler in kindergarten or whenever, it's all about like yourself and the group that you're interacting with and how you are feeling in this group. So it's not only about working environments.
Totally, and that's that you've hit the nail on the head, Sam. Because psychological safety is also defined as a group concept. It's something that happens in a group, and that could be any group. And what's also interesting is what they've seen is in the same organization, different groups have different psychological safety, and that happens because of the people and the leadership in every group. And that also gives us hope, because that means that you don't need to wait for the organization to make it psychologically safe for you. You can do that for your groups, right? And that's a very interesting thought that we have there. That's also the reason why we're talking about it here, because it's important for us to know what it is and how we can foster it in our groups. Okay. If there are no questions, let's move on. What Amy did, and you could actually go to their website, fearlessorganizations.com. They have a survey where you could really take on how psychologically safe you feel. And then the results come in terms of these 4 drivers. So these are 4 drivers that they've clustered psychological safety into. If you want an environment to be psychologically safe, so these are 4 things that you really need to do or think of. So it's an easy way for us to kind of look at psychological safety. So let's see what these 4 drivers are. Probably little anecdotes about each of them, and what can we do to actually increase psychological safety through each of the 4 drivers. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. The first one is what we call as attitude to risk and failure. That is a degree to which it is permissible to make mistakes, right? And then that's important for us. That's what we call as risk taking. How easy is it for us to make mistakes? Is it okay to make mistakes in our environment? And that's a very important question, because it's also about how mistakes are treated in our organization, right? And what we really see is that there is a need for us to frame failure, to really define what failure really is, so that people are able to understand what is okay and what's not okay, right? What we really see in our organizations is that we are in a world which is continuously changing. And because of which we could really look at failures in a spectrum. So we start with one end, which we call as preventable failures, things that we know we should not do and we still do. Those are easy failures, which we can always avoid. Then we have the unavoidable failures, because the systems that we work on are very complex. There is no way we could have avoided these failures, right? And there could be testing scenarios which we cannot always make out. So they are called the unavoidable failures. Then on the end of the spectrum, is what we call as intelligent failures. What are intelligent failures? Failures that these are probably experiments that we do to find out about the environment because we are not at all aware. So what we see is when we really look at the failures and mistakes we make, a lot of our failures are probably unavoidable or intelligent failures. But what we do is that we treat everything as preventable. And that makes it very difficult for people to actually talk about failures.
Perhaps here one thing to add also about the agile mindset. So if you're allowed to make mistakes, you easily have the possibility to learn from them, right? So a safe environment like also helps you to learn if you made a mistake. So even if you make intelligent failures, like you prepare an experiment and you have the set of mind that it might go wrong, but you know, like if it fails, then there's of course something that you will learn. So this is really important to set up an environment where you are allowed to make like experiments, which of course might fail, right?
Exactly. And so this is really important. And one of the things that we can do to improve this is to really talk about and set expectations or frame failure, destigmatize failure, and to say, okay, what is failure and what's not for us? So that could be one way for us to move forward in this particular aspect. And like I said before, it's a huge topic. So what we're going to do is just nitpick and just look at probably one thing that we could do for each of the 4 factors. Let's move on. Okay, somebody's drilling a hole near me, sir. I'm sorry for the noise. Okay, then we talk about open conversations. So that's degrees to which a difficult and sensitive topic can be discussed openly. So this is about how easy it is for somebody to really bring up topics and talk about this, right? And so there are 2 things that really comes to my mind when we talk about open conversations. The first one is if we need to really have open conversations, then we need to role model it. That means that, we need to be vulnerable. We need to be okay to admit mistakes and failures. We need to be okay to say, I don't know, as leaders and everybody in the team. Because if we are not doing that, there's no way in which we're going to actually foster open conversations.
Mhm.
Wow. One of the things that I do, basically, I run leadership workshops here. And if you have to really have a good leadership workshop, that also means that people need to really share their personal stories. How do we make sure that we create a safe environment for people to share their personal stories? And what I do really is I start by sharing my own failures. And I say, this is how my life has been. It's not been perfect and I've not been great. And what I see is that opens up the environment for people to really start sharing and talk about what's happened to them as well. So that's been very helpful for me.
Yeah, I think this is also again a very good point about like leading by example, right? By showing like, hey, this is what happened to me, like as somebody people, I don't know, look up to, or like as a colleague or as a leader in the team. So when you go up front and you share your own experience, it's easier for others to follow your lead. And of course, like in really great companies or like the role model companies, they have like walls of failure, right? And this also gives people the opportunity to say, hey, somebody else has failed at this, but they learned from that. So why not try yourself and also try something? And if you fail, you fail, but of course, then you also will have the opportunity to learn from it.
Correct. And another thing that we did a lot at Flixbus, especially when Sam and Manuel was there, is to encourage the feedback culture, to make sure that we equip all our employees to allow them to give feedback to each other in a constructive way. So that's another way to really open up conversations. So we've spoken about how to take about risks and failures. We said, okay, frame the failures there. Open conversations, we are saying be vulnerable, and also make sure that you creating a culture where you could give feedback. Let's move on. The third one is willingness to help. This is an interesting topic because a lot of times this is something that's really difficult as well, right? So when we talk about willingness to help, it's the degree to which people are willing to help each other, and also the degree to which you could even ask for help, right? And what can we do to actually increase the willingness to help? That could be a lot. One, start by saying. Start by actually asking for help, and then you could really, the question also here is, what do we encourage? Do we encourage people who just get their work done and are being heroes, or are we also encouraging people to really help each other out? One of the reasons why people are not willing to help is also the external things like a lot of workload. So that's something that for us to really always keep in mind. So in Agile, we talk about a sustainable pace for an indefinite period of time. What that essentially means is that are we able to actually do things in a way that people are able to help each other, they have time for a lot of other things too, rather than just, delivering stuff. And what can you do to actually be willing to help is first seek for help, always ask for help. And a lot of times say, I don't know, because you don't need to be somebody who knows it all the time. So I think that's a very important part of willingness to help.
Yeah, absolutely. What I also experienced in my life is that like once you're willing to ask for help, I mean, most of the people I asked for help, they did not deny. They were like, oh, of course I will help you. Or like, hey, I would not have thought that you need help, but of course I will try my best to help you. So it's really difficult, I think, at the beginning, like to ask like strangers or like new colleagues for help. But once you share like this kind of vulnerability, like people will always like try to help you, because I think these days, especially, we live in a really cooperative world where people are trying to help each other. So for me, at least, this was a great experience. Once I got confident enough to ask people for help, I always got the help that I needed. Which is also one point about like don't expect help to come by itself, right? So you can't be there and sit there and wait for somebody to come in and say, hey, do you need help? This is most likely not going to happen. So it's like on you to like get up and go to the people or take the phone and call people and say, hey, I have this problem, this issue, this thing I'm trying to figure out. Can you help me? And as I learned in my experience, most of the time people were really open and willing to help.
Yeah, I'm probably really related to the first topic, right? Because if I'm helping you, I need to be safe that if whatever we are doing together and fails, is not going to have any consequences, right? So there's a little bit of, I see, relationship with the same topic about safety to fail, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be really willing and enthusiastic to be involved into whatever you are going to ask me for, if there's going to have a consequence, right?
Totally, they're all related with each other.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to the last of the 4 factors about inclusion and diversity. And this is again very interesting, how we always talk about diversity and inclusion, but here we've turned it the other way around and said inclusion and diversity. It doesn't really help us to have diversity if there's no inclusion, right? So you can have diverse set of people, but if you don't include them, you're going to have different groups of people of me versus us. So what really is important is that we include people, really make sure that they're part of it. And that's when you're really going to make the diversity is going to count for you. So again, if you look at it as a spectrum, on one end you have diversity, you have inclusion in the middle, and the other end of the spectrum is what we call as belongingness, where you start really feeling I'm part of this organization, right? And that's very important, that we move people towards belongingness, where they start owning things and saying that, okay, I belong here. One of the things that we really need to do for inclusion is to make sure that we really include people in our conversations, um, in everything that we do. We make sure that we are inclusive in many ways, right? And the other things that we need to do is also to acknowledge what they are doing. So we spoke a lot about feedback culture, and we use feedback a lot of times to give people feedback when things are not going well. But I'm wondering whether we do really give feedback when things are going well, right? And when you really do that, you start really including people. When you thank people for the work that they do, then they feel acknowledged, then they feel part of it, right? And this is just one small way to actually include people and, make sure that they feel belonged. Asking their opinions, okay, inviting contributions. These are all different ways in where we could really make things more inclusive for people. Now, we spoke about 4 factors, right? We spoke about ability to take risks. We spoke about open conversations. We spoke about willingness to help, and we spoke about inclusivity and diversity. Now the question is, okay, these are 4 things, and for each of them, we had one way in which you could really further that for you. Now, the question for you is, we go back to Menti. So use the same code, and for you to really think about which of these 4 drivers needs most attention in my team. So if I were to kind of rank it, what would that be for me? Manuel, I think it's the next slide. Yeah. Yeah. So okay, so we see a fair mixture of all of them, right? Attitude of risk and failure, open conversation, inclusivity and diversity, and willingness to help. So what's important is for us to really figure out where is it that we have to start working with our teams, and then take some actions around that. And then what you would see is that would improve psychological safety. Like Manuel pointed out, one is going to influence the other. So we just have to get started somewhere. And so, for example, we are going to make it safer to fail. More people are going to help us. The more people help us, the more inclusive it's going to be. Then we're going to talk more about it, and so this goes on and on and on.
Yeah, perhaps one thing to add here. So I experienced like when you have like the first topic about like attitude to risk and failure, this is something that you need to approach and say, hey, what can we do about it? And like, what is the set of mind that you want to establish? And I learned that when you name things as an experiment and like, create this environment of saying, hey, it might go wrong. I don't know, but I'm willing to try, and I'm aware, and I make everybody else also aware that it might go wrong, right? It might fail, but I'm telling you up front that it might fail, right? So people get aware of that, and then it's easier to accept afterward if it went wrong, right? So this is also about making people aware that you're trying something new and it might go wrong.
I was thinking also related to the first one, right? The green one, the attitude to risk and failure. How then you see these many times, like, yeah, it's okay. We all can make mistakes and blah, blah, blah. And then in the same company, you have at the end of the year, a performance review when all your mistakes are put together, and then you are giving a bad rating because you made all these mistakes and you don't get whatever promotion or bonus or whatever it is, right? So how this is also not only related on the group, but at a higher level, and how some places just have this this nice yes, we are allowed here to make mistakes, but also we are allowed at the end of the year to put all these mistakes together and give you a rating, and you know, get you not promoted or whatever, and how these things clash to each other, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and what we see is that though it's a group phenomena, there's a lot of things that we could do at an organizational level to foster, psychological safety.
Yeah.
There are lots of examples that we could give on how psychological safety is important. Just want to give one before we move on. This comes from the book. What Amy Edmondson did was she started this whole research by looking at her idea was that, better teams make lesser mistakes. So what she did was she did a 6-month research where she went to different hospitals and she started looking at different groups. And the idea was over 6 months to find out how many mistakes are being reported. And also she did a survey with each team to really see how effective the team really is. Okay. And her idea was that, your team is going to be really good. Number of mistakes is going to be lesser. What she found out was exactly the opposite, that a very good team has a lot of mistakes. So what she really figured out that, okay, there's something else going on here. And she figured out that teams which are more psychologically safe are also more inclined to report more mistakes. So they are also more inclined to make more changes and get better. So this shows in very different ways. And that's very important for us to really reframe the way we look at making mistakes as well. Having said that, I mean, this is also something that Google's Project Aristotle really was inspired by. They came up with 5 factors that are really important for a very effective team. And there were many things that they spoke about, like purpose, making sure that people really are motivated to work and stuff like that. But what they said is that the underpinning factor, the factor that's the most important, which the other factors don't make sense, if not for this, that factor is psychological safety. So we see lots of research which says the same thing again and again and again. So the question is psychological safety just enough? Um, I really like how Amy Edmondson really puts it. She says, a psychologically safe environment takes off the brakes, which keeps people from achieving what's possible. Okay, but that's not the fuel that powers the car. You need a lot of other things, like, a purpose. You need make sure that you get the right kind of skills, people, a lot of other things. But you need the psychological safety to get you there. So that's the most important part there. What can you do? You could go back, have these conversations with your team. You could make sure that they understand this, and then try out different things for you. Okay, Sam, I guess over to you to really do a quick recap.
Thank you, Shiva, for this great topic. And this was the first part, and let's jump to the recap of 2021. So this was actually, I think, our best year in our Agile Breakfast sessions, because we almost had one topic per month, and I think we had a really incredible year. We started with like crafting your purpose as a topic, and we went over to how to create high performing teams, and what about like managing conflicts in the team, and also like how to grow your team the Agile way, and all those other topics that we had there. Also, we had great guest speakers who brought up new topics that really fit into like this kind of yearly overall topics all together. And today is our 11th breakfast, so this is really, really great. So also thank you guys for joining and being here. And yeah, we checked out that on average, we had like 30 people joining. So for us, this is also really great to see that people like, come and join the breakfast, and also like not only once, but are joining again and again. And of course, we're very lucky to have had 6 guest speakers overall. This was really, really nice this year. So we're really happy and thankful for all those people joining as guest speakers. Of course, we put all the guest speakers here together. So we had Pedro, we had Diane, we had Sandro, and we had Sam, we had Jerazad and Alex, and I think a few of them are here. So I think I saw Sam and Jara. So yeah, thank you, and also to the others. And if there's anything you still want to add, we're happy to hear from you. So just speak up if there's anything you want to add.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the presentation. I think it gives a good kind of like starting base on the topic of psychological safety. And I was just thinking that, when we speak about psychological safety, it's not like one size fits all, and there are different levels of psychological safety, right? The first one is, how do you feel that you belong to a group? That's the first stage. If you don't feel this sense of belonging, or you don't feel accepted, then you cannot pass to the level where you were saying asking for help or feedback, right? So when we want to establish a psychological safety environment, we first need to make sure, and I think there is a lot of research, and the book you mentioned is quite good to start with, but just fostering this sense of belonging at the beginning, right? In a team, like I belong and people accept me the way I am. And another thing that I have seen kind of like put a struggle into psychological safety is these organizational KPIs or OKRs, right? Because if they are not, the company can say one thing, but the metrics say another thing, right? So if you want to foster a psychological safe environment within your team or stand within your team, sometimes maybe the OKRs that you have or the KPIs that you have need to be tweaked in order to help your team, grow this psychological safety. Because as I said, every team is different, every department is different, and the KPIs across the organization are the same, right? So how can you make sure that your performance or KPIs or OKRs, whatever, are not really hindering what you're trying to achieve as a team? So I think it's important to just not take, it's important to understand the KPIs and the OKRs from the organization, but how you make sure that they are fit enough to help you grow this psychological safety within your team. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you so much. And yeah, really good points. And as Shiva already said, like the topic is so huge. There's so many things to be aware and think about. So yeah, thank you for adding those two. And I see Sam raising his hand. So hey, Sam.
Hi, yeah, thank you from my side to sharing this topic, psychological safety with us. It's nice talk, nice introduction. Thank you very much, and also thank you for having me this year to share one of my topic I grew into this year. Yeah, going back to the psychological safety, I want to say that most of the agile coach must be familiar with the so-called modern agility, this graphic. So in the center, it's about how to make people bigger, how to make them safe, and then how to help people to create an environment to do experiment, to delivery some results, and do experiment and so on. So I think most of us know this picture, and it fits very well not only to the modern agility, also to the 5 values in Scrum and other topics. So only if people we feel safe, we are able to increase our performance level. So that's something I want to give back to you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Sam, for adding another good point. Yeah, very cool. And yeah, great to have you here as well. And yeah, I think the others couldn't make it today, but of course it's always difficult with the calendars. But yeah, we were very happy and lucky to have such great guest speakers. So yeah, thanks to all of you. Then yeah, of course we also have our videos on YouTube. So if there's any session that you missed, yeah, you can just like scan this QR code, go to our YouTube channel, Agile by Experience, and you can review and view all our videos that we had this year. And now I hand over to Manuel for a little bit of feedback from you guys.
Yes, exactly. We were thinking also, okay, we did a lot of things. For sure, there were things that you like, things that you think were good, but
did we just lose Manuel?
Looks like it.
Manuel, we can't hear you anymore.
Wow. All right. Do you want to continue, Sam?
Sure. So yeah, we have feedback on Menti. So if there's like any open question or any feedback that you want to give us, I think the next slide is on Menti. I'm not sure how we can.
Yeah, you could just use the code and we could probably go there. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you see it, Shiva? Because for me, it's not working. Not sure if Manuel needs to reload it.
I guess so.
So we should have a few questions that are prepared in Menti. So just go through it and give us some feedback and click through the different questions.
Let's just wait for a second. If not, we just talk about it.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go.
Yes, so perhaps we can like just do it orally. So if there's anything you want to share with us, please feel free or write in the chat and then
you're able to see my screen, right, Sam?
Nope, I don't.
Okay, all right.
Still see Manuel's screen, so.
Okay, actually there are a couple of things there. I don't know why it's not showing.
Yes, but perhaps just from the audience, if there's anything that you want to share, we're really happy to hear your feedback, your input, your suggestions, or whatever questions you might have. So please share either speak up or in the chat. We're also happy to receive your input.
okay, I lost the connection for a minute. I think I'm
hear
back.
You again. Manuel.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
No worries.
I don't know if still sharing.
No, we can't see your screen anymore. So please share again.
Yeah. Need to screen. Yeah, I lost the connection for a second. Here we are again.
Great.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Manuel. This is much better.
Cool. So this looks nice. So many different topics. So Manuel, do you want to continue?
Yes, we did a lot of things. We were asking, I don't know what you covered when I wasn't there, but I was saying a lot of things that here we did well. So thank you. If you feel we did well all this, we really make an effort to, and sometimes it's a lot of work to put everything together into 1 hour. So thank you for this. Is in a way it's a recognition, right? And then we have, sorry.
I think there was a question I read, perhaps you can go back. So what would you do if a person in a team is very judgmental and keeps affecting the rest?
Okay, that's for our today's topic, I guess.
Perhaps Shiva, you can answer that one.
I would start with giving feedback. And a lot of times you need to let the people know that, it is not okay. And there are boundaries. And many times people don't know that. And so I would definitely start with that. A lot of times you just, pull the person apart and say, this is not fine. And you shouldn't be doing this. Probably then add that to our working agreements as a team to say, we respect each other. This is not fine. And every time somebody says that, to bring it up and say, no, this is not okay. So a lot of times we find it difficult to say no, or to bring up topics, and that's important for us to do because what we are willing to actually live with is how our culture was going to be. So it's very important for us to always set the boundaries.
Yeah, what I also would do is like tell the person like how it makes you feel, right? So like what is happening to you while you hear this person like judging on what you have done, and also like try to help this person to communicate what he is or she actually wants to say. So sometimes we say, hey, you're stupid, or you are this, or you are that, right? But perhaps sometimes it's just about like, this what you did wasn't that great. So it's more about like talking about like the topic or the issue itself, and not like judging the whole person as he or she is, right? So try to help those people to communicate what they actually want to say, because sometimes it's also difficult for them to communicate what they actually want to say, and then it hurts.
I would like to add something, if I may.
Sure.
One of the things, just not to put the thing on the person, but some things that I have seen on the retrospectives, for example, well, like what's not working, do working agreements, right? Like how do you think next sprint can we work as a team? So it's not pointing out at anyone, but it's just making sure that everyone is on the same page, and then come back and say, okay, how did we did with our working agreements? So they need to be redefined. That way everyone is in the same mindset, because sometimes people, it's a character trait and they are not aware, but if we are all as a team aware that this is the way we're gonna work, might ease the process.
Really good point, Jara. Absolutely. Yeah. And also I think we mostly forget too often to review our working agreements, right? Sometimes we set them up once, then we review them perhaps once again, but then we forget them for many months or even a year. So it's really important to recap and think about and test if they're still valid, even if like new people join and stuff like that. So it's a really important topic. Thank you, Jara.
Yeah.
Do we have more questions, Manuel?
No, I don't see more questions. This was our feedback. And then there's another question about what would you like us to do different, or what would you like this activity to be different? Somebody mentioning here community. I don't know really what it means, or what's the idea. But if you feel like unmuting and just sharing with us, that would be great. It's perfectly safe here.
I don't know if people have time to even write this, so probably give them some time.
Yeah, but feel free. I mean, the code is there. The Menti is there. You can also reflect during the morning. What would you like to us to do different? And we are happy to take into account for next year, right?
Yeah, perhaps if I could assume like what is meant by community, perhaps it's about like yeah, establishing a way of like, you know, getting this whole group together to share experience within like this community that we have here. So this might be something. I mean, there are a lot of tools that we could use for like, you know, creating some chat environments or whatsoever, so you can easily ask a question like anytime. Perhaps this is meant by community. And now we have another one.
Yeah, hands-on exercises or techniques we can test during the breakfast. I guess that, to be honest, that's our usual struggle, right? We always have a lot of techniques or exercise, but we feel that sometimes people are more in a listening mode and not so willing to participate or doing something online with us. So that's why we kind of usually go for the presentation way, but we can go back and try some exercise and try to do them together, right? I don't see why not.
Yeah, good point. I mean, also 1 hour is not so much time to really experiment.
True.
During the breakfast, and also it's sometimes about groups and teams and stuff, and then, you know, you're like in a completely new setup of people here. But as you said, Manuel, let's try something small. Perhaps it works and we can go into like breakout rooms or something. Let's see.
I don't know if people would like for some special session or when the topic needs a little bit more time, would like to, or wouldn't mind to have a little bit of longer breakfast, maybe 1.5 hours if we need or something like that, or this time is enough, or I don't know, because sometimes some exercise requires a little bit more time to explain and to practice and to do it. That we always wonder, okay, what about the timing, you know? Okay, I guess we have nothing else here to do different, but as I said, the Menti is there. You can save the code and later propose whatever you feel. We are going to keep reading this during the week, and if you have more ideas, we are going to be super happy to use them next year and keep them as an input for next year breakfasts.
Sure.
Good. Yeah,
probably
Shiva.
what we could do also, Manuel, is when we send the email, probably send out a link to the Menti so that people could put in some more comments, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess a lot of food for thought for us on what we need to do next for next year, and how we need to take this forward. But thank you everyone for joining. And really providing us with your input, because that's important for us. Want to know that, okay, what we're doing is valuable for you, and secondly, for us to really go back and think, what can we do different?
Yeah, also thank you guys from my side. So I'm really happy to have this last session this year and have all those participants and feedback from you guys, and also all those great sessions and our guest speakers. So thanks a lot, and yeah, Merry Christmas. It's approaching soon, right? And also a Happy New Year to all of you. And yeah, we will also do a little retrospective and see how to come up with new possibilities for next year, and how to involve like all those topics from you guys. And yeah, we'll see us next year. So
yeah,
thanks.
Thank you everybody, and thank you our guests also.
Thank you. Have a good holiday season.
Thank you, guys.
See you next year.
Thank you.
Bye.
Merry
Bye-bye.
Christmas. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.